Good afternoon. This is Micah Mitchell with crystal clear weather and locally Madison County weather updates. I'm going to take a quick look at how things look to play out for us in the short term with some precipitation, and then longer term with some temperatures and potential snowier pattern. In the near term today, we are looking at this system that is lifting up through uh, the Ohio Valley and into the parts of the upper Midwest and Great Lakes regions, bringing some rainfall through the day. Nothing too major in Indiana and Ohio. A little bit more rain has fallen out across the parts of the plains in the upper Midwest and upper Great Lakes as there was this elongated finger of precipitation that went through those areas ahead of this low pressure. As this low pressure then moves on, you can see the spin back here as that moves on off to the northeast. We can see some snowfall begin to break out in parts of Wisconsin. Uh, as a whole, it shouldn't be too big of a deal, but this could actually produce some localized heavier snowfall just in a real quick dump of snow. So be aware if you're in parts of northern and northwestern Wisconsin that you may be looking at a quick thump of snow. And then as we move into the day tomorrow, most of tomorrow is again, this thump of snow would come in the overnight and early morning hours. Most of tomorrow is pretty dry for the region. And then we have this other system that begins to move in the early hours of Sunday. And this one's going to track farther east with the main low pressure system tracking up through the Ohio Valley, through Indiana and Ohio. Where this storm tracks is going to make a big difference on how much rain falls. But as a whole, across this region, basically parts of eastern Illinois, almost all of Indiana, and most of Ohio, we could be looking at widespread half-inch to an inch, but some areas could pick up as much as 2 inches in this area where the rainfall is going to be a little longer term. That's where that sets up is not exactly known just yet because there's some air masses beginning to battle, and that could change the track of this storm. But you can see the track of this. This kind of a track. If colder air were in place, this would actually be a major snowstorm. But we're warm, so this is just all rain that will track through and get out of here by the early morning hours of Monday. As you can see back here across parts of Minnesota, there may be some mixing going on up there, but I don't think there's going to be anything too impactful with that. Temperature wise, we can see the gradient beginning to set up. There's 50s. This is in the morning, about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. In much of Indiana, Ohio, stay in the 50s, upper 40s to lower 50s overnight tonight. But you can see colder air beginning to try to work in back here toward western parts of Minnesota and Iowa. Then, as we progress through the day on Saturday, uh, again, much of the Ohio Valley will be in the mid to upper 50s. Some parts will be in the 60s. And again, even these back here where you're in the 30s and 40s in Minnesota and Wisconsin, that's warmer than average. So even though it's cooling down some at that point, it's still warmer than average. Then we continue to see just the gradient tries to get in here, and you can kind of see the curve of this low pressure system on that's passing off. Then we'll begin to see temperatures, uh, the colder air begin to progress to the southeast behind this low pressure system that'll come through on Tuesday into Wednesday. Then we'll fall down to more seasonable type temperatures so that by the time we get to New Year's morning, temperatures across the Ohio Valley still warmer. These are more like daily highs, but these will be the low temperatures on Wednesday morning. But you can see the teens beginning to get into Minnesota, and then the colder air progresses into the Ohio Valley, and then we can see yet another reinforcing shot of colder air begin to push in. So by the time we're getting into the day on Tuesday, the warmer air is beginning to be suppressed farther southwest of the Great Lakes region and south. You can see Minnesota. This is daytime highs next Thursday, the 2nd. Highs in the single digits to teens up there, highs in the mid 20s in the Ohio Valley. So now we're getting into some more January type temperatures, more like mid to late January, part of the coldest air that we've seen this season. And then you can see the cold air just continues to reinforce itself. So that by the time we're getting to next Saturday morning, now we've got lows in Minnesota that are pushing, getting close to 10 below. And we've got some teens coming all the way down into the Ohio Valley for lows. And then as we get into the highs, lower 20s down in the Ohio Valley, single digits back in Minnesota and the northern parts of Wisconsin. So much colder air is going to push in. And then with this cold air, we'll begin to see storm systems. First, probably some clippers. I do think this cold air might set up a little farther to the southwest than what the model data is showing. But as this colder air gets into place, we're going to begin to see a more active storm track, especially as we kind of keep this gradient right around. That is something that where you got the battleground between warmer and colder air. That's something that sets up larger storms. And then we can see yet again some reinforcement. This warm air here is pumping up ahead of a storm system that we need to keep an eye on for the Ohio Valley around the 5th or 6th. Depending on how things set up, it's still a long way out. We might be looking at the first significant snow of the season in the Ohio Valley. We'll just have to see how this plays out as it gets closer. And then we get the reinforcing, even colder shot of air behind that, so that by the time we're hitting, you know, the morning of Wednesday the 8th, we've got lows in the teens to 20 below in Minnesota and parts of Wisconsin and Iowa, and getting single digits into lower teens in the Ohio Valley. This we'll also need to keep this little stretch of warm air. That will be a lake effect fetch that can help supply some just random snow showers that with that kind of cold air can add up very quickly. So that's just kind of what we're going to be looking at as this progresses on. There may be a quick mid-month warm up, and then there's another storm system here. You can see this is around the 10th. You can see the 30s begin to surge back in, but then look right behind it. This would be the storm around the 10th. I think is something that if the one on the 4th, 5th, or 6th doesn't pan out as decent snow for the Ohio Valley, this one probably will. So we'll just see. And again, that's pulls in some another shot of colder air, and that's the way I think January is going to play out quite a bit. And we'll see generally cold. We'll get these shots of warmth into the Ohio Valley ahead of storm systems, followed by snow and cold. There probably will be several clipper systems involved. So overall, right now the pattern is looking like January is going to be pretty cold and active. Very last thing, because this video is getting a little bit long. Um, Here we're going to be looking at 24-hour snowfall. This is a GFS. It's just a model. Again, I think all this stuff is going to set up a little bit differently than what the GFS sees, but it does show you at least the pattern of systems coming through. So here's the snowfall that I was talking about potentially for parts of Wisconsin. Just a real quick thump of snow overnight tonight into the morning. That snow then gets out of here. Once that low pressure gets across, then the parts of Michigan could pick up some snowfall off of the Great Lakes. And that snow departs, and we get into early Wednesday. I do think the GFS has this snow over here in Ohio. I do think this could actually be some very light snow Wednesday morning in parts of Indiana as well. We'll see how that plays out, but it won't be anything significant, just enough to say that it fell as that system on Tuesday departs and cold air moves in. Then we move on. Here we're getting into this is next Friday. This is the morning of Friday the 3rd. We can see his clipper system digging in here. And then it cuts across the southern parts of Indiana and Ohio. Again, this depends on how uh, far south the cold air moves. If the cold air doesn't dig quite as deep, this track is farther north. If it digs more, then this track is farther south. This is still a week away, so we'll keep an eye on it. But know that it is possible that parts of the region from Iowa through Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, and parts of Kentucky could pick up some decent snow with this clipper next weekend. Then we'll I want to try to keep the date where I can see it. That system then will get out of here. And then here's around the 5th and 6th. This system, I think the GFS is a little more sloppy with. But again, this is 24-hour total, so this actually will be more than that, than what this advertises. I do think this is a little too broad, but we'll keep an eye on this system around the 5th to the 7th because this one I think has a potential to be something heavier down here along the Ohio Valley. But you at least see that the system is there, it departs, and then we watch and we start to see some just lake effect snows pop up, especially up here in the western parts of Michigan. This is on the 9th, and then that moves out, and then we watch this system. The GFS has it around the 11th. It may be a little bit, might occur just a little sooner. Again, the GFS wants to suppress this well to the south. And again, just how deep the cold air is digging is going to make a big difference. And again, I do think this is actually going to be shifted. I think this track is going to be a little more this way. But we'll see. But you do see that the systems are in fact there. It's just a matter of where they go, how deep the cold is at the time they come through. But January is right now looking pretty cold and active with just, again, the Ohio Valley may see some storm induced warmth ahead of these systems. And in our region of the country, some of our biggest snows come where there's warmth ahead of it, and then cold air plunges in behind and really squeezes moisture out of the low pressures. So I ran this video longer than I wanted, but I just kind of wanted to show you what's coming up both at short term and out into the mid to long range. Well, I'll update you as this gets closer. In the meantime, this is Micah Mitchell with Crystal Clear Weather and Madison County Weather Updates. Those of you follow me on Madison County Weather Updates, if you don't support the page, if you do support the page, thank you very much. Thank you to the sponsors that support that page. If you don't and you can, please do so. Sponsorship is cut down to about in half on the individual level. I've lost a couple business sponsors, looking like I might lose 2 or 3 more at the beginning of the year. So please support this page, the Madison County Weather Updates page. And for those of you on Crystal Clear Weather on TikTok, hopefully I get myself up to the number of subscribers where I can start doing lives and really turn this into something better. So again, Micah Mitchell, Crystal Clear Weather and Madison County Weather Updates. Have a great day.